claim if our eyes were just either slightly different from what they are, we talk, we see things that are normal.
Welcome to Strange Familiars, and happy Halloween, everybody. If you've seen something strange, if you've been a witness to the paranormal, a UFO, a cryptid, Bigfoot, a ghost, anything strange, we'd love to hear your story. You can contact us by email, strangefamiliarspodcast@gmail.com, or you can leave us a voicemail, 717-347-8554. I'm a little backed up on interviews right now, so the quickest way to get us your story, if it's short, is to leave us that voicemail. Again, that's 717-347-8554. So last week, I spent traveling and recovering. I do not travel well, coming back from the Strange Realities Conference. I want to thank Adam and Surf for putting on that conference. I had a great time at the Strange Realities Conference. I hope it becomes an ongoing conference because it was very well put together, very well organized. Had a great time in Nashville. So once again, thanks Adam and Surf for putting that together and inviting me out there. On tonight's show, I will be talking to Alice. I met Alice at an event over the summer, and she saw my Bigfoot book and told me she had an encounter with a possible Bigfoot. We got to talking some more, and she told me on the same property was a haunted house, which, if you've been following my work, came as absolutely no surprise to me. It's a great set of stories. It's perfect for Halloween. Before we go on, I want to mention this story took place at an undisclosed location in New York State. After we recorded the interview, Alice contacted me. She was very concerned that people interested in Bigfoot or ghosts or something would try to access this property. I assured her that I would keep it all as anonymous as possible. But she would like to reiterate, should anyone figure out where it is or try to figure out where it is, the property is still owned by her family. They do not want people going on that property for any reason. They do not want trespassers. So please respect her privacy. Without further ado, let's get to Alice's story. So we're talking with Alice tonight, who has a story about seeing something in the woods. And I think when you told me about it initially, you were a little bit reluctant to say it was Bigfoot. You just said, it was something. So we can talk about that, and you can tell your story. So where did this happen?
It happened in...
Mm-hmm.
The house that I grew up in was what I consider, well, we can talk about that a little bit later, but the house I grew up in, behind that house, was a very old brick house. And being young kids, we would go out and we just played like we explored, because in the basement is actually a dirt basement. And thinking now, all these years later, I'm kind of a little bit curious myself, because there was like clothes, like human clothes coming out of the ground. And I'm kind of curious, like, if something was actually buried underneath there. And anyway, that we took our notebooks up there and just, playing it. We were explorers and writing down stuff in our notebooks. But I had this really bad feeling, like something was watching us. And
so when you say we, you mean like you and your siblings, or?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, my brother, my two brothers, and my sister were there.
Okay.
And I just told them, I just have this really bad feeling. It's just this feeling I can't shake. I just feel like something is watching me. Something's just not right. Like the whole atmosphere, I just felt like was not right. And of course, they're telling me I'm paranoid, whatever. I just kept looking around, and I kept looking around, and they're like in the basement. And I'm still outside. And I'm just looking around, and I just see this big, just dark, huge, tall thing move from left to right. And in between that brick house is like, I do believe that what I was told, it was like a shed, like, I guess where they hunt and kill deer, and like they would like hang the animals or something.
Okay,
in
yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
So there was still like deer skulls and stuff in there. So in between the two, the brick house and then that wooden building, it was like this huge thing just moved from left to right. And in between that was a big, like thorn bush. And I just turned and looked, and this thing just parted the thorn bush and like was looking down at me. That thing was absolutely huge. I mean, I would say was over 9 feet tall, could be over 10 feet tall. I mean, the thing was just the tallest thing I've ever seen in my life. It was one of those things where I'm seeing it like it was only a couple feet from me. The thing like could have killed me, for sure, could have killed a grown man. And I'm looking at it, but my brain is trying to process what I'm seeing because it's right in front of me. It's a living thing because it's moving. And I still remember the details in it. It was like a dark reddish brown, and it had dirt in the hair, and the face of it was, it had like hair coming down, like it had like a big forehead, but the hair like came down from the forehead over the eyes, and then this, where the nose and the mouth would be, it was like hair from there, and it came down over that. And it was just the weirdest thing. Like, I've never seen anything like that before. And like, I still do, like, I make, my own horror movies and stuff like that. And I used to collect masks and Hollywood masks and costumes like that. And I've never ever seen anything that can come close to that. I still today, like, I don't want to call it Bigfoot because I don't know what it is, but that's the only closest thing that I think I can compare it to, but it didn't look like an ape at all. It was just this weird, huge, tall, hairy beast, but it was human because it was on 2 legs. It had, arms, hands, all of that. I don't know what I saw, but I moved my notebook just a little bit, and it was enough to scare it, and it just took off running. And then that was the point where I just, yelled at my siblings to get out, to run down to the house, and then I made sure that they were in front of me before I followed them and made sure that they were all right.
Wow. Well, how old were you about when this happened?
I was probably, I would say like 12, 13.
And were you one of the older siblings, or?
Yes.
So they were
I was the oldest one.
Okay, so they were younger than you.
Yeah, they were younger than I am.
Wow. Do you remember any details about the face?
Just that it had like this, I want to say it was almost like a caveman forehead. Kind of, how that forehead kind of comes out a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it was just hair, like the whole thing was hairy from top of the head down to the feet. The whole thing was just covered in, this dark reddish. I remember it was like reddish because it was kind of weird because after I saw that, I started kind of getting a little bit interested in like Bigfoot, but nothing that I could find came close to what I saw. That was like another thing. Like most of them would say it was brown, most of them say it was black, but I very specifically remember seeing it was like a reddish brown.
Like an orangutan color, or?
Kind of, but like a little bit darker, but there was like red in it. And I thought that was interesting. Of course, there was like dirt in the hair, like you can tell, like if something was sleeping or laying on the ground. Kind of like, an animal, how that they would have like dirt and stuff in their hair.
Right.
But yeah, the face, like I remember like these beady eyes behind the hair, that was coming down over the eyes. It's like it was mostly like I don't know how it could actually see, but I do remember seeing a little bit. You can kind of see like the glistening of the eyes underneath the hair, and then just that nose, like with the nose and mouth of you, it was like hair coming down from that, coming down to like over its mouth, excuse me.
So it was like a human-like nose, like it was hooded like a human nose?
I couldn't hardly tell because it was so much hair.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
It was just, yeah, the whole face was hair. It was like hair coming down from like the forehead over the eyes, and then hair coming down from like the nose, and then it was like hanging over the mouth. But the whole face was hairy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Could you see any like skin color beneath the hair, or was it just too much hair?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It was just completely just dark, reddish brown hair.
Wow. Was it like parting the leaves or something to look through at you?
Yeah, because there was this thorn bush like in the middle, and it was obviously it was taller than that, but I think I was shorter, so I was being covered by like the thorn bush, and it just parted it like it was nothing, like it was just grass, and like you couldn't even, like a normal person couldn't even touch that thing because it was just, I mean, it was a thorn bush. It was just nothing but thorns.
Wow.
And it just parted it like it was nothing. And that also like freaked me out because, yeah, like there's no way that no one could touch that thing. That thing parted that thing, the thorn bush like nothing.
And did it make any noises at all?
It didn't. It was very, very quiet. It just went from left to right. It moved the thorn bush. It just stared at me. Like it was just completely still. It just stared down at me. And then I just moved my notebook just a little bit, and I must have just spooked it. And it's kind of crazy thinking that such a little bit of movement would, I don't know, scare it or something for it to take off. With it being that big, because I was so little, and then just that little bit of movement too would be enough to spook something that big.
Wow.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's very, very strange. So was there any more signs of it? Did you ever see any, anything strange ever happen on the property or any other sign of it ever again?
Well, my brother told me that he saw something big and dark and like hairy-like, because up there was like a mountain, and in between on the mountain there was like this big parted, I don't know, like there was no trees there because there was like a power line, and it was kind of odd because there was like trees on the left, trees on the right, but there was this bare spot right in the middle. And my brother told me one time that he saw something, big and hairy, just walk completely from one side to the other. Of course, I'm a person where I need facts and proof. Like, I'm just like, okay, all right. And I just took it with a grain of salt. But he said that he saw it. I didn't.
Wow. And then never any hint of it again? In other words, it did seem like it was hanging around the property.
There was one time where, because there used to be, well, no, not used to be, there still is, kind of like a dump site. I don't know, one of my family members must have started years ago, but it was like where they took a whole bunch of trash and they made this huge dump site, but whatever. That's beside the point. But we heard like something was moving something heavy, and we could actually hear it. We were down at the house, and there was just this slamming. Like, we know that there was like refrigerators and old refrigerators and stuff up there, and it just sounded like something was just throwing it, or just this loud noise. And then we did hear, I don't want to say like monkey noises, but some type of like really strange animal noises that we could not explain, but it kind of like sounded close to like some type of gorilla or monkey sound, or like, I don't know, like it's very, very hard to explain. It really, really is, because it sounded like a cross between, an ape or something, but then like an animal sound like we've just never even heard before,
right?
Like ever. And it was to the point where I remember my brother was like crying in tears because we would just yelling, trying to get his attention. And you can hear it running too, like whatever it was running through the woods. And you could hear it. My brother was in tears. Of course, I thought it was funny. But other than that, that was the only other time that I remember anything coming close to that. But I've never seen something like that again.
Right. Now, did that all happen around the same time?
I would say around the same time frame, not long, probably a couple months after.
Mm-hmm. Now, so this sort of abandoned house that you guys were, I mean, you were essentially using it as like a playhouse, right? It was, you know.
You mean the old brick house?
Yeah.
Oh, that thing. Well, we kind of stayed pretty much away from that thing because that thing was so just not good stuff happening in that house. But also, it was also the house that I grew up in. So I don't know if you or your listeners are into paranormal or anything like that. But what I consider, like, I personally don't believe in ghosts, and it's kind of hard to, maybe after these stories that I'm going to share, that people will be like, how in the world could you not believe in ghosts? But I believe that they are, it was demonic, that demons can take on any form that they want. But the house that we grew up in had so much demonic activity that it's pretty crazy. The stuff that, just not what I've seen, but my family's seen, and we've seen the same stuff, just on different, obviously different occasions, like different dates and stuff.
I definitely want to hear those stories. So this was the same brick house then? You had originally lived there, and then moved out?
No. The house that we grew up in was a totally separate house from the brick house. The old brick house was a completely separate house right behind our house.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. Did you go back to, after seeing this creature, and we'll just finish up with this now, did you go back there to play much anymore, or was there a cooling off period where you had to kind of be like, whoa, I don't know if I want to go back there? Or
there definitely was. Like, we definitely didn't want to go back up. Of course, my siblings had a hard time believing me. Like, of course, when it happened, I just told them to get down to the house, and then I told them after we got down to the house what I saw. You know what? I'm so sorry that I just remembered a couple stories, if you don't mind me sharing.
Oh, yeah, please.
It's crazy because there's just so much stuff that happened at that house. It's kind of like it's little bits and pieces are starting to come back to me talking about this stuff. So the house that we lived in, there was also a pond behind the house. So there was the house we lived in, there was a pond, and then the road that went up, and then there was the brick house.
Okay.
Now, we were all at the pond, and we took our fishing poles there, and there was fish in it. And even one time I even caught a snapping turtle. But yeah, there was like stuff in there, and we would just go to the pond and play and, have fun. And we saw something, me and all of my siblings, we saw what we thought was our mother that was there on the porch of the house that we lived in. But that was like all hairy, and it was just this really dark, hairy figure. And for some reason we just thought it was our mom, even though she's not like hair or anything like that. But we just saw like this outline, and we're like, oh, that's just mom. And then we realized that she wasn't even there, and the truck was gone. And we're like, oh, shoot. But, of course, stupid us, we just ran into the house, which is probably not the smartest thing that was on the porch. So that was one time that was so... Because you kind of mentioned if there was any other sightings. And I remember when it snowed really bad, that there was actually footprints of, like, this really giant... And it looked like a human foot. But it was, like, so big. And I remember like putting my footprint next to it, and it was so small. I do remember that. That just came back to me.
So it was bear footprints, like BARE, not the animal, but like a barefoot in the snow. In other words.
No, it was like a human foot.
Yeah. I don't mean the animal bear. I mean like it wasn't wearing shoes. I should be more clear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Like it was like there was not wearing shoes or anything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was just a completely bare, like human foot. I thought that was pretty weird.
Yeah. Did you follow it at all, or just decide to leave
it went from like the creek and it went up to like where the porch was, and it like ended on the porch. And obviously, well, that's not good because then it went. But of course, this was during the winter time. This was a completely separate from what we saw on the porch when we thought it was my mom's. That was like during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
This was during the winter, obviously, because there's snow on the ground. But yeah, it stopped. Like obviously, you could tell it walked from like where the creek was on the side, and then up to the porch, and then it just disappeared from there.
Right.
Like I couldn't. There was no other footprints other than just leading up to the porch.
Wow.
And I wanted to like thinking like, oh, I wish I could like cast it or something, but I didn't. I didn't have anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's. I mean, it's so creepy. It's creepy that it was around, but I guess obviously it had every chance to do something, to hurt you, or if it was going to take one of you kids, it would have been able to do it. It had every chance.
Yeah,
to do
that's the weird thing. If it was like really harmful, it didn't do anything to us. It would just seem like curious.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it seemed like.
Right.
The most evil stuff was worse in the house that we lived with than what the hairy thing that I saw, which is kind of crazy to say that, but it's true.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the impression you get. You get the impression that it's just kind of curious. It's just kind of around and every now and then checking you out. And then,
right. It was mostly, like observing. That's all it basically did.
Yeah.
Just observing and was like curious.
Yeah. Which, like I said, it's creepy. It's creepy to have, something like that.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is.
Well, looking back, it's scary even at the time when you're into it, I'm sure, or when you're in the middle of it, rather. I'm sure, but looking back, you can go, well, it didn't actually hurt anybody or do anything harmful, so there's that.
Oh, but it definitely could have.
Right.
Let me tell you that I think they could have just killed a,
yeah, I mean,
grown man for sure.
Yeah, when it was that close to you. I mean, how far away did you say when it parted the bush?
It was like literally a couple feet. If I would have put my arm out, I could have touched it.
Wow.
Like it was that close. Like I looked up at it. Like it was super, super close. That's why I remember like every little detail down to like the dirt and the mangled hair. Wow. I remember it very clearly, yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very close. Yeah, if it wanted to, it could have grabbed you easily at that point,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Very, very interesting, though. Those are some very interesting encounters. Yeah, I think you had... I don't know if what we call Bigfoot is a collection of different things that people are just calling Bigfoot. I think you saw my book and you said that's not what I saw, the drawing I have on the cover. And I told you at the time, yeah, I mean, that's just one sort of thing that people report. Some people say they look like gorillas. Some people say they look like people or cavemen or just giant monkeys. You get all these different things. So I don't know if there's a bunch of different things that we're just calling Bigfoot or exactly what's going on. But this definitely follows the pattern that other people have reported when they have them kind of around their property. So it's very, very interesting. Very interesting. So, yeah, let's talk about this house.
Oh, boy. All right. So the house is actually my grandparents. My grandmother still owns it to this day and the property. So I remember growing up when I was really little, we lived in the basement. And I remember even seeing things then. And I'll share 2 stories from that time that I still remember till this day. So one of them was I remember seeing an old man in the dining room. And I remember it was just me. My brother wasn't even born yet. It was my baby sister. And my mother was just freaking out because I said, well, there's an old man like Pappy in the dining room. And I was literally like standing right next to him. And I remember it so clearly to this day. It was just completely solid. And just this little old man. He was in a suit. He had little glasses. He had like a fedora hat with a band around it. He had a cane. And he was just smiling and looking down at me and my sister. And I just thought it was just a regular person in the house. But apparently I guess it wasn't, because my mother was freaking out and yelling at us to come in the other room and just screaming and just literally just flipping out. And I didn't understand at all because it was just so clear. Like it was just looked like a regular person. Like it was so solid. And I remember her being on the phone with my dad. And I remember my dad and my sister, my older sister, coming home. And I remember him like when they got home, they like lifted me up and they're like, "What did you see? What did you see? What did you see?" And I'm just like, "I just saw old man like Pappy," and I just wanted down because I didn't understand anything. And it wasn't until a while later when I got older, they were like, "Yeah, there was no one there. We didn't see anything." And I was like, "Oh, that's great." But yeah, I remember I even asked my sister was so young at the time. She was just a baby, but I looked at her and I said, "You see the old man like Pappy?" And she just shook her head, "Yeah." And I'm just like, okay. It just seemed normal to me. But another one that I remember is I was sleeping with my sister, my older sister, in her bed, and where her bedroom was, it was like the stairs right at the bottom of her bed that went up from the basement upstairs, and there was a railing on the side. And on the railing was, well, first I heard my name being called over and over again, and it woke me up. And I looked at the bottom of the bed, and on the railing was this cat-shaped body, but it had a sun face, an S-U-N, sun face, but it was like the cartoon type of sun, like with the triangles around it, and it had a human face, and it was pointing and it was laughing at me. But you couldn't hear the laughter, but you could see that it was laughing. And it just kept saying my name over and over again.
Wow.
And that just freaked me out. And I just, of course, I was so little, but I remember it very clearly. I just hid under the covers like that would do anything, but that's what I did.
I've known grown people who I've interviewed who've told similar stories that have happened when they were grown, and they just said, "I just pulled the covers up. I couldn't think of what else to do."
Okay, so I don't feel too bad because I was probably like 5 years old. But yeah, I clearly remember that. And the crazy thing was, I remember after my sister, she graduated from college, I remember she said, "Well, I just got this book. I found this book, and it's all about demons and stuff." And she said, "I kind of read it, and inside that book, I can't remember what the name of it was, but she described that there is a demon that has a sun face, like a head, but like a human face and a cat-shaped body." And I can't remember what the name of it was, but yeah, some of the stuff, I remember she told me that, and my heart just like leaped in my throat.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen...
brought that memory back.
I feel like I've seen a book with like maybe an old woodcut or something illustrating that, or something similar. It sounds really familiar. It does.
I've never looked into it myself because I don't necessarily want to read anything about it. Like, I know what I saw, and I'll stand before any judge and be like, "Yes, that's what I seen, and I'll stand by it." But yeah, 'cause that freaks me out, even so, thinking about that, what I've seen. But yeah, that's just when I was really little. But the other stuff that we experienced, of course, there was the doorknobs rattling. You could see, like, you know how kind of like there's at least like an inch in between the floor and the doors.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see like shadows moving back and forth, like someone's standing there, but you open the door and there's no one there.
Yeah.
Knocking on the doors, that type of stuff all the time. But that was just a really simple the simplest stuff. Well, not the most scary stuff, but I did write down a couple if you want to.
Sure.
Would like me to share them.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of them was that all of us, like me and my whole family, we would always hear like a lady singing, and it was always like in the bathroom, like it was just this humming, but it was like in a tune, and we always thought that was kind of odd. One of the most really scary things that I experienced was it was late at night, and I just kind of heard this little, because once we moved, let me kind of be a little bit more clearly. So we lived in the basement of this crazy house, and then we moved out to another house, and then we eventually moved back into that house because my Nana still owned it, and she's like, "Yeah, you guys can live in it." So we moved back into that house, and now we are living, upstairs now, not in the basement.
Okay.
So our room, me and my sister shared a room, and we were all the way on the second floor, and right beside us, kind of like in the corner, but of course it's not in our room, but it's outside our room, was the bathroom, the upstairs bathroom. And then right beside that bathroom was my older sister's room until she went off to college, and then my two brothers moved into it. So we're living in the house now after we moved back, and this was, I was older now, but it was late at night, and I heard like the cat dish moving around in the bathroom. And then that started with the cabinet doors opening and shutting. And then the toilet lid slammed up and down. So now it just sounds like it is just everything is going. It sounds like completely haywire in the bathroom between cabinet doors slamming open, the door slamming and opening, the cat dish rattling and shaking around. Like the only how I can kind of describe it, it was almost like that scene like in Poltergeist where the kids' room that just has all this crazy stuff like moving around.
Right, yeah.
And they show, they kind of remind me of that, but it was so loud, and I was trying to wake up my sister, and I couldn't get her awake. And I literally had to pound on the floor because right underneath this was my parents' bedroom, and to try to get my dad to come upstairs. And as soon as he turned on the light to the hallway, it just completely stopped. Of course, like, he was pissed because I woke him up, but he came upstairs, and I explained to him, and man, I was just sobbing. It scared me to death.
That's so interesting. The fact that the one little detail, and I'm just going to say that we met at an event. You weren't necessarily a Strange Familiars listener, so you haven't heard a bunch of my episodes and so forth. But one thing we talk about is a lot, because people report it a lot, is people who have these experiences and they can't wake the other person up. So they'll be, be a husband and wife or brother and sister, whatever it is. The person's asleep in the same room with them. They can't wake them up. They're having this experience, and it could be very loud, like you're saying. Like, you're saying things are slamming and opening and closing, and they cannot wake the other person up. It's very, very strange. But it's something I hear repeatedly. So.
That's so creepy. See, I've never heard that before, ever. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like, I was literally shaking her and trying to wake her up, and I just thought because she was in a deep sleep that she just would not wake up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
creepy.
I hear it.
That's weird.
I hear it again and again, and often people say they'll wake up and see something very scary, and then they'll say, and for some reason I just went back to sleep, which happened to me one time. I won't go into it now because the listeners have heard it a million times, but it happened to me one time. I woke up, I saw something very scary, and I just fell back to sleep. I went right back to sleep, and I kept waking up, but I kept going right back to sleep. It's very, very strange. I don't know.
That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's almost like sometimes it's like the experience is meant for you, for good or for ill, like, and not for your sister. You know what I mean? Like that was for whatever reason that was yours.
Specifically targeting an individual.
Yeah, or what? I don't have a lot of answers, but I can tell you, like, this is something that repeats. This is something I hear a lot. The not being able to wake someone up.
That is weird. See, I've never heard that before, ever. That's really creepy.
Yeah, it's definitely a recurring theme. So, sorry to interrupt.
Wow.
So,
no, please do. Whenever you have something like that to share, because, like, I've never even heard that before. That's super weird. I'm actually going to I'll relate that to my family and be like, hey, guess what? Tell them something new, because I'd never heard of that before. That's super weird.
Oh, yeah, it's just because I talk to, witnesses of different phenomena every week, and whether it's UFOs or Bigfoot or ghosts or whatever, and it just happens again and again. People will tell the same thing, and I couldn't wake my husband up. He was right beside me, or I couldn't wake my wife up, or I couldn't wake my brother up, or my friend was in the tent next to me. I couldn't wake him up, whatever it is. I hear it again and again.
That's weird. Huh. Super creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So continuing the crazy stories I have, the other one that I have, actually what it is, number 3, was what I call the boy in blue velvet. And this stuff also, like, this house is just so crazy that a lot of this stuff just happened in broad daylight too. Like, a lot of people think, oh, it's because they do stuff at night, and you always see, like, these paranormal investigators, they wait till at night. No, this house was so crazy that stuff would just be happening in the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. Like, it didn't matter, night or day. So this basically happened in the daytime. I was watching, like, a movie in my parents' bedroom, and I went to go get something, and I was coming back in, and in the hall, my brothers had, like, a stack of Hot Wheels, but it was, like, in a clear bin. And on top of that bin was a little boy, and he looked so angry. And I don't know, I don't know why it was so angry, but first it was just this little boy that's not even in our family that's sitting there. And I just remember it so clearly down to, like, the clothes he was wearing was, he had, like, blue shorts on, a blue, like, it was like a little suit, like the blazer jacket, the white button-up shirt, but his bow tie was, like, the old-time, like, black bow tie with, like, the tassel things hanging down. He had, like, short brown parted hair. He had a really pale face, and the blue that he was wearing, like the shorts and the blazer, was velvet. And he just followed me with his eyes when I walked by him. And it was the weirdest thing, because it was almost like it was slow motion. Like, I know what I'm seeing, but my brain is trying to register, like, what I'm seeing. It was just the weirdest thing. And then I looked back and he was gone. But the really weird thing is, years later, my sister had one of her friends out for a sleepover, and they were in our room, and they came down, and one of her friends said, "Yeah, I got to tell you something, that there was a boy in your bed." And I'm like, "Well, that's great." And she kind of described him, and I cut her off, and I said, "Oh, well, he was wearing blue velvet. He had a really pale face and parted hair." And she goes, "Yeah, that's exactly who I saw." But it was kind of weird, because she said he kind of almost looked like a teenager, rather than the little boy that I saw looked between, like, 5 and 6 years old. And it was weird, because it was years later, so it was almost like he aged.
Oh, that's
weird. That's just weird. Yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was just, like, sitting in my bed, I was like, "Well, that's great. I really don't want to go to sleep tonight." Yeah, she never came back out to the house for any sleepovers or anything like that. A lot of the friends never did, after because they experienced stuff too, that they've seen stuff. Yeah, that's really, really creepy. Another one experience I had was, I was in, like, a really deep sleep, but something kept shaking me and trying to wake me up. And I just ignored it, and, like, I would shake it off, and then it would just, something started shaking me again. And it was to the point where I had a wooden nightstand on my right, and it shook me so hard that my arm went over, my knuckles hit my nightstand. So that really made me angry, and I was like, "What?" And I sat up, and when I opened my eyes, I saw, like, something gliding, like this dark figure gliding. And then it went to the bottom of my bed, and it was just this outline of this person. It was dark, like a shadow person, and it just stared at me. It scared me to death, and the only thing I could think to do was to pray. So I prayed, and I opened my eyes, and it was still there. And I prayed again, or I closed my eyes, I prayed really, really hard, and I opened my eyes, and it was still there. And I did it, like, 3 or 4 times. And I think it was, like, on the 4th time that it was finally gone. And that scared me to death. Like, it took me over a year before I could even look at the bottom of my bed, because it just scared me so bad. And it's weird. Like, it was just this dark outline of this person, but it's still, whatever it was, it shook me, woke me up, and I guess it just wanted to show itself to me. Still scared me half to death.
Yeah, and could you notice any details at all in it, or was it just black?
No, just completely black. Just completely black. My sister saw them, all the time. She would call them shadow people. Mm-hmm. And she always wanted, like, a nightlight on her side, and I always made fun of her for wanting a nightlight. But she said because if there would be no light, the shadow people would wake her up, and she would see them.
Wow.
And I'm just like, okay.
Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the description I've heard of other people who describe them, and I find it very interesting, is they say it was kind of like blacker than the darkness around them, like they were that black. Mm-hmm. Does that apply?
No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. We actually had, that time that my sister did have the nightlight on her side, so there was a bit of light reflecting on my side, but not much. But absolutely, yeah, because I've seen them. Oh, my whole family's seen them a ton of times, like on different occasions, and it's darker than the blackness around. like what you said.
Yeah, I've not seen that, but like I said, I've talked to enough people who've described it that way. You know, when someone says shadow people, I always kind of ask, is this? And then again, it's consistent. That's what people say. You know, that's what they look like. But yeah, why would it wake you up?
Experience.
Like, what's the purpose of shaking you? And then it's not like it did anything. You know, it's almost like it just wanted a reaction from you or something. You know,
right? Because I think it just wants fear.
Yeah, it could be.
I think that's what it wants to do. Is it just wants to bring fear, even though they don't physically harm you.
Right.
You know, not all the time, but I think, just to get a reaction, just to scare you, because it feeds off that energy.
Yeah,
for sure.
It could be, yeah. Logically, that's the only thing that kind of makes sense. It for whatever reason, it wanted you to see it.
Right. But it's just weird that, you know, I prayed and prayed, it would open my eyes, and it was still there. Like, it just would not go away at all. And that's what really scared me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, like, it just would not go away. And it was literally like the fourth time that it finally went away. Yeah, that was really crazy. But the most scariest thing that I think I can remember at that house was, it was really early in the morning. It had to be on a weekend. The sun was just coming up. Me and my sister was like already awake, but she like went down because she's like, I'm already awake. I'm just going to go downstairs. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going back to bed. And on her side, like, she had this, I don't know why in the world she kept weird things. But when she went to like a friend's birthday party, she had a balloon that she took from the party, but the balloon didn't have any air in it. And it's like one of those from Walmart, like those foil type balloons with like scrunchy. Yeah. And you can hear it, if you touch it or something. So she had it like taped. It had no air in it. It was completely deflated, but she had it like taped up to the window. And I'm trying to go back to sleep, and I just hear like something messing with the balloon, like scrunching it. And we had an AC on, and I thought maybe it was just the AC, like the air hitting it. But then I was like, well, if that's the case, then it would have done it the whole time. It just wouldn't just be on it this time. But it kept getting louder and louder and louder to the point of just, it sounded like the whole thing was like shaking, or someone was like squeezing it or scrunching it. And then all of a sudden, I just heard the most evilest growl that I can ever imagine. Like, I told my family that the only thing it can come close to is like if you ever watched Underworld and you heard like a lichen growl. I said it sounded like a little kitten meow. I said it was the most evilest growl I have ever heard in my whole life. I've never heard something so evil. Scared me to death. Of course, my back was turned to her side, so I was absolutely terrified, completely frozen. I couldn't even move. I was so scared. And I finally cut out, and my brothers were already awake. They're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I couldn't even talk because I was so scared. It scared me that bad, trying to explain. And we went back in, but the balloon was fine. And, you know, it didn't even look like someone even messed with it. And there was nothing there. But yeah, that was probably the most scary thing that I've experienced at that house.
And
compared to all the... Oh, go ahead. You
didn't see anything. You just heard this growl.
Didn't see anything. It was just sound. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, see? I react to sound. That's I notice, like, if I'm out with my friends and we're doing, like, a paranormal investigation, sounds will get me more than seeing something. Like so I can completely understand that. Especially if it sounded close. Did it sound like it was kind of in the room with you, like that close?
Oh, yeah. It was definitely in the room. For sure. It was on my sister's side because we used to have, like, a divider between in our room just to kind of give us each privacy. And so that even made it worse. So I didn't know if something was going to come over the divider or, like, peek over. I didn't. But it was definitely on her side of the room for sure. It was so loud. And it was awful.
Wow.
Awful.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But, I mean, there was just so much stuff in the house. I mean, there would be times where, I mean, smoke would just fill up our whole room. Like, me and my sister would just be in our bedrooms, and there was just this really thick white kind of smog smoke stuff.
Really?
And then it would, then it would just disappear. Like, it wasn't, like, there was no fire, there was no fire smell or anything like that. It was just this weird, thick smoke, and it would just appear. And it was enough where, you know, it got your attention. You're like, whoa. It was the weirdest stuff. And then there would be stuff that would appear on the walls, like the slimy, I don't know what in the word. The only thing I can think of it is like coffee or like Coke type of like brown sticky stuff that would be like appear on the walls, and then it would just disappear.
Wow.
Like, it was just the weirdest stuff. Yeah. It was so much crazy stuff in that house. That's why I really think that house is just demonic.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask you, you know, and there's no wrong answer to this. I'm just curious, why demon and not ghost? Was it just because of the negative energy of everything, or do you have a particular reason for that?
Well, I just believe, I mean, I personally, like, I'm a Christian, so I believe in good and evil, and I don't believe that it is ghosts, because to me that just doesn't make sense. To me it was just more evil, even though, I'm trying to, because we did do, like, because I used to watch, you know, Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures, and I'm like, oh man, they're talking these things and they're getting responses. So we actually did one ourselves, and it proved to me that it was nothing more than demons posing as, you know, humans or something, because, you know, I would ask something, and then it was like one of the things like knock once for yes, twice for no, or something like that. And one of the questions, like, it didn't know the answer to until I started thinking of the answer, and then it responded to that to the answer I wanted.
Yeah.
And it's more evil to me. So I just believe that it's more demonic than just ghosts. Because I personally believe, like, when we die, we just don't. Certain people just don't wander on the earth. They, you know, we just go to one place or the other.
Yeah. As I said, there's no wrong answer. I'm just curious. Me personally, I think, you know, just a lot of times what people are calling ghosts are something else. You know, whether it's, you want to call it demonic or something else. But I don't think the souls of dead people, I mean, sometimes it really appears that way, but I've often suggested to people, if you were something else, wouldn't that be a convenient form to take, you know, to come back as something that looks like a person and convince someone very easily you were that person returned, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's, like I said, there's no wrong answer. I was just curious as to, you know, why you would say that. But yeah, it sounds like there's definitely more to it than the souls of dead people. It sounds like to me as well. There's something very responsive in a way, you know, and interactive. Not necessarily in a nice way, but it seems, you know, like I said, you were shook awake by something. It's something that, you know, wanted some kind of reaction or something.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, that place is so evil that when my sister brought her, well, she was dating him at the time, but her husband now, out to the house, you know, they would pray before they would come into the house, and they were in the driveway, and he's a big guy. Like, he's over 6 feet tall, and he would not sleep with the light off.
Huh.
He hated going to that house. I mean, didn't want to go to the house at all, because even he had experiences and he would see things.
I know you said it's still in the family. Does someone live there currently, or is it?
No.
Okay.
No, no one lives there now. It's completely, what we call abandoned, but, you know, like I said, my Nana still owns the property and the house, but no one currently lives there.
Right. I was wondering if anybody, there were any current stories, if there was a current resident, but no one lives there.
I'm sure there would be if someone still lived there, for sure.
Right. You said it was her home before you guys, you know, lived there. Your grandmother's home, I mean. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Did she have
that's correct.
Did she have any stories?
She said that she always heard things, and she would kind of see, like, shadow things. Mostly just, she said that this really bad energy. She always said that it supposedly was built on an Indian burial ground. We don't know how much that's true. And, of course, like, you always hear that with, you know, haunted house stories and stuff like that. So we don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, she always said that she never liked the house, but my grandfather liked it, and so they bought it.
Yeah.
But I wish that they wouldn't have, though, because it was an awful house.
Yeah. How long did you end up staying there?
I mean, I think that we moved out, because we moved back to it, I want to say in like late 2000, early 2001, and we moved out of it in like 2011.
Oh, so a good long time. Yeah.
Yeah, for quite a while. We were there.
Wow. Yeah, so after a while you well, you never get used to this stuff. That's the thing, but you just have to live with it. That's what I like. People are like, "Well, why didn't you move?" Well, sometimes you can't. Sometimes that's where you live, and you have to live with it.
Right. Oh, I wish you would have moved sooner. I wish we never would have moved back in. And a lot of people probably think, well, that would be so cool to like experience all this stuff. But even till this day, like I'm having effects with it.
I believe that.
Like when I dream, and if I'm in a dream where if I'm in a building or a house or something, the interior is always that house. And I haven't been there in, almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even during that whole time, I've lived in a whole bunch of places since then. It's always that house that my dreams go to. And I don't know why. And I think it's just so deep in my subconscious mind. I think that it's almost like a scarring on a type,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I can believe it. It's, like I said, especially when you have to live with it and for such a long time. It kind of it's like it gets imprinted in a way.
I am pretty curious, though. I do wish that someone would investigate it because I'm sure they would turn up a lot of good evidence. But I think that if anyone would, they would definitely have to sign like a waiver. Be like, we're not responsible for anything because there's seriously like some demonic stuff, some really crazy dark stuff in that house.
Wow. Yeah. And this is the same house that when you're at the pond and you looked up and saw whatever on the porch, that's the same house?
Yep, that's the same house.
Interesting. See, for me, I'm just because I hear so many stories where people will tell me a Bigfoot story and then they'll say, oh, and then I saw a ghost, or my house is haunted too and I saw a Bigfoot around it. Again, I don't draw any like hard conclusions because who can say? But I just can't help but feel like they're somehow connected. I don't know how or why, But I hear so often people will say, like I'll go out for a Bigfoot investigation. I'll get called, I saw Bigfoot on my property, whatever it is. I'll go out and talk to the people. And it seems like a lot of the time, I want to say probably 80% of the time or more, they'll say, yeah, my house is haunted too. And it's just like, wow, what's that about? That's very strange. I can't say for sure it's connected, but I'm not surprised when we talked initially and you said, oh yeah, and that house was weird too. I was like, of course, that makes sense to me, but why that happens, I don't know. I can't tell you. I have suspicions that they're all connected, but I can't say for sure.
Yeah, that's really weird. To me, there has to be a connection. Now, me personally, like I said before, like I can't label it what I saw as exactly Bigfoot, but it's the only thing that can come close.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am open-minded, like could have been, something, a demon manifested itself to look like that. Could be. I don't know. But whatever it was completely solid.
Right.
To the point where, it moved those thorn branches.
And when you saw that,
it took off running.
When you saw the boy in the velvet, did he look solid?
Oh yeah, he was completely solid.
Yeah,
he just looked like a regular person, just sitting there.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
He's not what do they call that, full body apparition.
Right.
He's not the only one I've seen or what my family's seen. I've seen other things in that house. One of the craziest things, not I saw personally, but my brother told me. Well, it was actually my brother and my sister were on a swing set, and they looked up at the old brick house, and because they heard screaming, and they looked up at the brick house, and they said there was this woman running out of the brick house, and she was like in an old, what he said was like an old-timey dress, and there was a guy running after her, and he shot her with a shotgun.
Oh wow!
And she like fell down. And then he said that they just disappeared. Now, like I said, like I take everything like with a grain of salt, and I'm just like, well, that's really creepy. That's weird. But when he told my older sister, that freaked her out because she said that she saw that in the 80s.
Oh.
Yeah, she said that's exactly the same thing that she saw when she was little in the 80s, of a woman screaming and running out of the house, in the old brick house, and being shot with a shotgun, and a man chasing after her. And that to me, like, I kind of took it a little bit more seriously, but to me, that till this day, that creeps me out.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that personally, so I can't validate it or anything like that, but
Right.
it's a crazy story, nonetheless.
Yeah. Did they happen to describe what the man was wearing?
Like overalls, like jean overalls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they said that's what he looked like he was wearing.
Wow.
And then like a button-up shirt underneath it.
Did it happen to be plaid by any chance or checked?
I don't remember him saying it. Is that detailed? But
yeah, I get a lot of reports of people waking up and seeing. Usually, it's they wake up. Sometimes it's they'll just see him in a strange circumstance. Guys in red, usually red, like checked or plaid shirts, and to the point where that's why I asked. Honestly, I get so many reports of that.
that is weird.
Yeah, it's
so weird.
Yeah, well, my wife saw him when we were dating. She woke up one time. She woke me up screaming, and she had seen him standing at our feet. We were sleeping on the floor in her parents' house of her old bedroom, and I talked about it on the podcast, and then I just started getting call after call after call of people saying, "Yeah, I've seen the same thing. This guy in this red plaid shirt."
So weird.
Yeah, so that's why I asked. So I just wondered if he had been wearing plaid, but
I mean, I'm sure he told me, but
Mm-hmm.
it was so long ago, I don't really remember that detail.
Right.
But I definitely remember the story, what he told for sure.
Yeah. Now, and that's another thing. Like, so is this some past event that's kind of replaying that they're seeing, or is this some
That's
sort?
That's what we think. Now, also, like at the house, we always heard like a car pull up and like the car door slam, like someone getting out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you would look outside or go outside and there'd be nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like this trapped, what we always said, like this trapped sound or something that was there. And it was like a tape. It would just replay.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it was that or not, but it was just, yeah, I definitely won't forget that he saw what my sister saw, but in the 80s. And of course, then when he saw it, it had to be like mid-2000s, probably like 2003, 2004.
Right. So almost 20 years later or so.
Yeah.
So very interesting. The two most reported paranormal sounds are babies crying and car doors slamming.
I'd rather hear car doors.
Oh yeah.
It's super creepy. The baby crying. Ugh. I would not like that.
Absolutely, but the fact that you're saying you would repeatedly hear the sound of this car and the car door slamming, again, that's, you wouldn't know unless you, like I said, I do this every week. I talk to people all the time, and I myself have been in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, and heard a car door slam like it was right next to me.
Wow.
And that's what got me interested in that, and then I started looking into it, and a lot of people have reported that again and again, this car door slamming sound. So it's
that's crazy.
it checks a lot of
I didn't
boxes.
know that.
Yeah, your story,
That's crazy.
like I said, you're just checking all these boxes. Very, very interesting. Well, Alice, do you have any more?
I mean, there's so much stuff. I'm just trying to remember all of it. Those are the top ones that I jotted down. But I mean, we would always just, like I said, see shadow people, hear things, the walking, car door slamming. Of course, like the smoke and stuff, but
yeah, the smoke is that's really interesting, because every time that happens, I would imagine now you have to get up and look for a fire, right? Like you can't just let that go. Well, maybe
right.
Unless I guess it happens enough where you're like, oh, this again, but I would think you can't just let that go,
Well, yeah, because one of my biggest fears is like that, like a fire or something, and like losing everything.
Mm-hmm.
But in me and my sister's room that we shared, there was what we call like this cubby hole, and it was just like this little doorway, and it was just this space, I guess they call it a cubby hole. And we always thought that when we saw that smoke, we thought that the cubby hole was on fire.
Right.
And we would, look for the fire, but there was nothing. Obviously if there's a fire, you're going to smell it too, but there was no smell, and then it would just, just fade off, and it would just go away.
Yeah, that's creepy. Because there's, you would think there'd have to be a reason for that if it was explainable. Like something's malfunctioning, something's happening. But
oh yeah, but we looked and there was absolutely nothing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's wild. That's wild.
But another story I just remember. It was in the middle of the day, and I was standing in the hallway, and I was talking to someone. And I felt like there was someone like behind me standing. And you know how like you can feel when someone's standing behind you, you can't, bend your arm because your elbow will hit them.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like there was someone standing behind me, and I couldn't move my arm. And I remembered like, well, me and my brother are the only ones in the house right now. So why in the world do I feel that way? And I turned and I looked, and then like right behind me on my right, it was just this little boy, and he was like staring up at me. And anyway, he had like the most creepiest face. It was almost kind of stretched, and it was just really pale, and he had like these just, sad dog eyes, and he was looking up at me, and he had like a bowl haircut. And he was wearing plaid. I do remember that. So that's kind of weird that you said that. But I won't forget that either. And then he just disappeared. And he was solid too. Like he was completely solid. He wasn't see-through or anything like that.
Right.
And then of course if it was another one of those things where you're seeing it, but your brain is trying to figure out like try to understand like what you're seeing.
Yeah,
because there's no one else in the house. It's not one of our family members. It's no one we know, but it's this kid that's completely solid in the house.
Right. Yeah, you have to go through that checklist. Like, who is this? Is this, and you go down, why is he here? What's going on? And then...
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah. He just kind of blinked out then? Like, just...
Yeah, it just went away. Like, it just faded away. It was the weirdest thing. Yeah.
So going forward in your life, once you moved from this property, these kind of experiences just stopped?
Mm-hmm. They just completely stopped once you left that house. And so that's why I truly believe it was that house. Whatever, I don't know if the burial ground thing is true or whatever it was, but that house, yeah, it just completely stopped once we left that house.
Yeah, some places just for whatever reason, these things are drawn to them for whatever reason. But wow, Alice, thank you so much for sharing your stories. Absolutely loved them all the way around. Very, very creepy stuff.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me share them.
Oh, sure thing. Thanks for listening, everybody. I want to thank Stephen B. and Steve P. for their PayPal donations. That's a great help. If you'd like to help us make Strange Familiars, you could become a patron at Patreon. That's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. For just $3 a month, you can get extra shows. We do one full extra show every month, at least for our patrons. In October, we did 2. Last week, I didn't do a regular show, but I did do a Halloween special for our patrons. We do give other bonus content besides the 2 patron shows this month. Our patrons got to look at my talk from Albatwitch Day on the Pennsylvania gorilla flap of the 1920s. But like I said, we guarantee at least one full extra episode of Strange Familiars every month for our patrons. That is a great way to help and to support the podcast. There are all different levels of support at Patreon. You can check them all out. Patreon.com/strangefamiliars. If you don't like the idea of a monthly subscription and you want to do a one-time PayPal donation, you can find a paypal.me link in the show notes for every episode at strangefamiliars.com. Another way to help us is to make sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening, whatever podcatcher you use, YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, wherever, and to leave us those nice 5-star reviews. That really helps get the podcast in front of other potential listeners. Thanks once again to our patrons, and thanks to those who have given us PayPal donations. You all make Strange Familiars happen. We will be back soon with another episode of Strange Familiars. Until then, you can always find us at strangefamiliars.com. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts, music, books, art, podcasts, and more. darkhollerarts.com. Intro and background music is by Stonebreath. Go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com for more. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/strangefamiliars, where you can join the Strange Familiars Gathering group. And we are on Instagram, @strangefamiliars.
Hey Tim, my name is Owen. I listened to your Pandemonium episodes, and then I was just listening to the Where Did the Road Go with you on it. And when you were talking about the white face on the tree, it reminded me of a story. It reminded me of it when I heard the Pandemonium episodes too. So my mom, she's a devout Catholic, and she goes on these retreats, you know, like a couple times a year to monasteries in the area where they don't talk for like a full week. They just pray. Yeah, it's real serious religion stuff. But she gets a lot out of it, so it's helpful to her. So she the last time she went, one of the monks had died. He was really old. He had gone there when he was 18 and hadn't left his whole life. And so she got to see burial practices of what they do with the monks when they die. So it was a whole long day, really, really interesting to hear her talk about it. But most importantly, she had an experience after there were like 4 days of preparations before he was buried. So after he was buried, she had an experience where she looked out of her window at the room she was staying in. And the room she was staying in at the monastery, it looked out right onto this giant tree. And she said she looked out and she saw a face in front of this tree. And I kind of questioned her about it. I was like, well, was it a part of the tree or was it in front of the tree? She said it was in front of the tree. It wasn't the actual tree. So she was kind of almost nervous, I think. She said she knew it was there. It was looking at her. And so she looked at it for a few seconds and then looked away. She got nervous. She looked back and it was gone. But she got a good look at it the first time. It seemed pretty clear from when I was talking to her it was not pareidolia. She got the impression that it was Mary. It was a Marianic or, a Virgin Mary apparition. And it really, really moved her because I think that's one of the positives of like the Catholic cosmology is, when you see these sort of things, if you get a good feeling from it, then it is positive. It's not, earth shattering. It's not reality breaking. But yeah, it just reminded me of your story. Oh, also she looked in this little book, the sign-in book, and she said many different people had written down in that sign-in book for the room, love the Mary tree. So it kind of implies that maybe other people had also seen the face or what she interpreted as Mary, But it reminded me of what you were talking about with the face in the woods, and also it reminded me of the Green Man, in England on the churches and all that, the face covered in leaves that would be carved into trees and all that, sort of like the werewoods and what the werewoods are based on, I'm sure, from Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire. But yeah, I just thought it reminded me of that specific story. Love the show. Really, really like it. Yeah, you seem very genuine, and I appreciate that in this field. But yeah, thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
I will see you in 1 year, and one day I will find a way. You will know me by the light in my eye and my lonely side. And if you walk with me a mile, you'll find you never knew me before. If you'll stay with me the night, you will know me by the morn. Stay here for 1 year and one day, through sun and rain, all the secrets that I know I shall tell. You shall know me well, and if you choose to stay once more, the moon shall remember your prayer. Give another night, the dawn shall take all your care. I will see you in 1 year, and one day I will find a way.